cloud. This is being recorded to the cloud, thanks to the courtesy of Cultura Networks and R622 week 5, I dare to say. Gosh darn. So after this, we're 1/3 of the way through this course after this week, because this is a 15-week course. There you have it. And it's front-loaded. Well, I shouldn't say. My other course is front-loaded, R795, with lots of stuff in the first few weeks. This course, not so much. It's more evenly balanced throughout the semester. I had some questions that came today, just 5 minutes before class time, if they gave me that much time. We have a question from Patrick Healy for Tom Reeves that Sunmei is going to ask. And I don't know if I have anyone waiting for me to allow them in. I have a question from Chris Gonzalez. Question 1. Oh, there you are. Regarding option A, learning environment critique and analysis, I would like to analyze a hybrid environment in a Costa Rica public university. The professor there teaches face-to-face courses, and Bo wants to get in here because Bo knows. I'm glad we found out in our discussions that Bo knows. Anyways, not Sonny Bono, but Bo knows. We have a question about Costa Rica, not Puerto Rico. They're having all sorts of problems in Puerto Rico right now. My friends are really wondering what's going on. We have to make Sunmei a co-host, so I have to find her. There she is. So you will be helping me out, right, Sunmei? Co-host. There you go. So she's asking about Costa Rica. I'm doing a dissertation about Costa Rica right now. Natalia is one of our students, and you may know her. Are you from Costa Rica, Chris?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Have you migrated to the USA, or are you going back?
No, I have to going back, but because I am a Fulbrighter, so when you get a scholarship from Fulbright, so they tell you that you have to go back to the place that you are, right, 2 years, so you can't stay. So you have to. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, you should have been in my last book because it's made up of Fulbright scholars who've written short stories of taking stuff back to their country. So she writes, I would like to analyze a hybrid environment at Costa Rica Public University. The professor teaches face-to-face and also in person using LMS or Moodle. Can I analyze the Moodle course tasks, Moodle activities? Does this hybrid course work for this assignment? I would think so. We should continue to explore that. I keynoted the Moodle Moot conference in Melbourne, Australia about a decade ago. And I was originally on the Moodle man's dissertation, the guy who invented Moodle, Martin Dogmaeus. I could connect you to Martin if you would like to ask him about Moodle directly. I'm not sure if he has time to answer, but we could try. His philosophy is very social constructivistic in nature. That was the original design of the Moodle platform, was to be more active, more interactive, more negotiation and exchanges. I'm not sure if they've taken Moodle to that level yet, but that was the goal. So it's important that you do study it, and maybe you do a comparison between what's actually happening in the Moodle class and the original goals of the designer and founder of Moodle. Now that would be fun. And then you can think about learning environment design, what your perspective is on it, and then send him your report. Maybe he should make some changes. I don't know. Question number 2 from Chris Gonzalez is regarding the project skeleton approach. The tentative principles, at least 8 principles. Are these principles focused on a theory of learning environment? If these are tenets of our learning environment or specific principles, do we come up with some principles that represent our group's learning project focus? So that's a good question. Are they macro, general, that apply to all learning environments, or are they specific to this learning environment? And since you asked that question, I am going to ask you that when you do your report, you list those that are macro, general ones at the top, and those that are specific to your particular learning environment below that, or that might be more spin-outs or derivatives of the macro, of the overarching maybe 7, 8, 10 principles that you would like to see in all learning environments. But then when you get to brass tacks and build environments in Moodle or in Canvas or something else, that we have to keep in mind the social political climate, the the age of our students, familiarity of our students, ethnicity, cultures, all these social cultural aspects that are going to be point by point. Every environment's going to be different. Some people might be working with hearing impaired young females in the Middle East, which I spoke to about a decade ago when I was in Saudi Arabia. They made a conference and they had a signer and all that kind of stuff for all these hearing impaired, 700 of them. So that's a very unique kind of environment. Your environment might not be as unique as that, but it'll be unique nonetheless. So that's a great question. Both are great questions. Any other questions about tasks? Or I will roll with it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll give you 5 seconds, 8 seconds. No? Okay. I'll be quiet. Oh, Mika has a question. She put her, no.
No, I just scratched my forehead.
You cracked your forehead. Not everybody.
No, not cracked. I scratched.
Oh, okay. Her mother is a teacher down in Jamaica and is going to be reading my next book, from what I heard.
School
today.
principal. School principal.
School principal. Great.
Thank
Is
you.
she going to be hit by the hurricane down in Jamaica, or is it just Puerto Rico?
I don't know. Usually hurricanes pass on the east side, so we just get a lot of rain there, and hasn't been directly hit since I think 1988.
That's where all the rain songs come from, Jamaica, right? Okay. They got lots of rain. Sume would like to see, well, you're getting lots of rain, Sume, right? Got lots of heat, now lots of rain, right, Sume?
Just rainy yesterday, but actually raccoons came to my house and then ruined my front yard. So in this morning, I called animal service. It was very not usual. He said that that's because this area usually no animals came to the house.
A dinosaur? What was the animal that came?
Raccoon.
A raccoon. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just a raccoon. I thought you said a dinosaur. Okay.
No.
All right. Let me go to my slides for today, since some people have joined us from Japan, coming to us from Tokyo early in the morning. Yayoi's up at 7 o'clock, all dressed up in fancy for us. Thanks for coming, Yayoi. You want to say hi to everyone before I start, Yayoi?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Yayoi, and I'm talking to you from Tokyo. And it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Nice to see you, everyone.
So we're only 11 hours, no, we're 13 hours different then. Okay, so same as Korea. Japan and Korea are the same time zone, and China is 1 hour different. Right, okay. Yayoi's got a chapter in a couple of my books, and is an old friend who's used my Word as Open book to frame her dissertation. And you could talk to her about that and interview her about that if you would like. I'm sure she'd be happy. She's interested in teaching English as a second language in Japan, but many other things in terms of new technologies for teaching and learning. So I've reframed a little bit of this talk. I've given this document for the last 20 years. Elaine Coe and I, who wrote the book Adding Tech Variety, which is a free book, have come up with a new book that's going to be out any day now. It might be out today, in fact, or coming week. Our friends at the Commonwealth of Learning in Vancouver, including a good friend of mine, Sanjaya Mishra, who Yayoi knows very well. Sanjaya asked us to create a short version of the Tech Variety book, a newer update, and a class that teachers could take, or even principals in Jamaica and Costa Rica and wherever else in the world you happen to be, they can enroll in this course. Now, the first book has been downloaded by 200,000 people as of like 2017. The book came out in 2016, and within 3 years, we had hundreds of thousands of downloads. Then the counter stopped. So I do not know how many downloads it has. The new version, again, will be free as well. And it will have some audio and video files from us, unlike a regular book that's just text. They'll have voice overlays and other kinds of things. So I am going to speak about this Tech Variety model in approximately 7.5 hours. I'm going to be speaking to people in South Africa. And I do not know what city they're in South Africa. I've just given the university name. So I thought I'd practice with you because I've updated this whole thing. But before we go, in the chat window, could you write down what's one interesting pedagogical idea you saw an instructor use, or you in fact used during the pandemic? What's one thing you saw someone use, or maybe Yayoi, you in fact did, that was really encouraging or creative and so forth? So
well, while they're doing that, can I ask you, do you sleep?
People asked me that earlier today. I went to bed at 4 or 4:30 this morning. So I used to not. I do now. I do now. No, I do. I found out I have to. Okay, so we're getting much in the chat window. Sunmei. 3 questions. Okay, so the 3 questions did work, Christian, in the discussion in Canvas this week. 3 levels of questions. If you get the TEC-VARIETY book, go to the table of contents, look up 3-level questioning. Visible thinking routines. I just told someone whose manuscript I edited late last night, I said, there's no visual in here summarizing. And I asked her to add that because visuals are empowering. Visuals are very powerful for learning. It's something that enables us to dual code the content. So we get things declaratively, verbal memory, and visual memories. We want to combine verbal and visual, and that's my R2D2 model, which I'll present on in a couple of weeks. This is tonight's on the TEC-VARIETY model. Verbal recap, so explaining something to someone else will be more powerful than reading it. Having to explain it, you find out what you know, what you thought you knew, what you don't know, what you'd like to know. Verbal recaps are good for meta memory, thinking about your memory, as well as getting your nodes more, I would say, solid, and so they're retrievable. It's not just available knowledge, it's accessible knowledge. And with visuals, you got multiple pathways to access the knowledge. So all these are critical. Levels of questions is important because then we dig down deeper below the factual kinds of questions and get at analysis, synthesis, evaluation, and so forth. I don't see no one's doing anything interesting during the pandemic or flipped classroom. Okay, so I've got a series of studies on flipped classroom in Korea and in China. If you would like a copy of any of those, you have to write to me. I'm very interested in it. Although I would say that the people who study with me at Indiana seem to be even more interested than me. It seems to be very popular in East Asia, and maybe in Japan as well. Yayoi, flipped classroom?
Yes.
Have you used it?
For example, someone is using MOOCs.
You're using MOOCs, videos within MOOCs. So before a lecture, you might have them watch a video instead of you lecturing. You have the expert from Harvard or Stanford lecture, and then you have activities around that MOOC video, right?
Yes, and in the classroom, we discuss the instruction designs. Okay,
that's another thing.
And the contents.
And the instructional design of that video. So you're critiquing it.
Yeah. We are making critique.
Well, I had a student do a dissertation on that. He started 20 years ago. In fact, he started in 2001. He finished in 2021. And he looked at the instructional explanations in the video. So if you would like that, Yayoi, I'd be happy to share it with you. It's brilliant, his dissertation. His name is Jung-Hoon Lee. He's from Korea. He came with no kids. He got married to his wife. He met in the lab in IST and has 2 children about 2 miles away from my house. They now work full-time, both of them for IU in the School of Public Health. Game-based learning. Well, there's a lot to, accomplishment hunt's more specific. Thank you for that. And that you can read about in the book. Thanks, Christian, Mr. Pointy Man. Flipped classroom enables you to give ownership to students, yet you're still controlling. You're still showing the videos. The videos exist. The content's still there. It's just how you go about the delivery of the content that changes, so you free up time for more in-depth discussions and so forth. Game-based learning, people try and gamify all their contents if they could, but it sometimes is very expensive to do, and it requires a lot of thought and a lot of understanding of what it does gamification mean. And so I've written a couple of papers recently There is one that came out on how gamify MOOCs, and it came out last year in 2021, I believe, in the Journal of Computing in Higher Ed. And it's got a lot of hits. If you'd like to read that paper, I would be happy to send you that one. More importantly, Mika, we have another paper from 10 years ago that it's called Finding Your Special Place. The special place stands for 12 Principles of Gaming. It's an acronym or a mnemonic for remembering gaming principles. Those gaming principles are not easy to remember. There's so many of them. Brainstorming and co-creation, I'll get to that. That's in my talk. Kahoot, that's in my talk, Mika. All these things, these are all in my talk. Great, so I'll stop here. So I see you're starting to list what's in my talk. My next question is, how can you motivate online students? In the chat, how can you motivate online students? And if you don't have anything to say, just put a word that exemplifies motivation. Such, how can you motivate? Such as the word feedback, okay? Such as the word curiosity. What kinds of words come to mind, or what activities come to mind when I say motivation? I'll see what people have written in here in the chat. And Christian, he wants me to call him out when he's quiet. That's why they call him Mr. Christian. Walk the plank. Social connections. Okay, so that is one of the principles, is being interconnectedness. Real world, so meaningfulness, real world. With Tom Rees at 8 o'clock, we'll talk about authentic learning, real world learning. That is principle number 6 of my tech variety model. So you've been reading ahead a little. Personalization, you know, bringing people in and connecting them in emotionally to the content is critically important. So Gina, thanks for real world. God, thanks for social connections. Mika, positive reinforcement. Thank you very much. I worked with B.F. Skinner's daughter and husband, and they certainly believe in positive reinforcement, the behavioral approach. Principle number 2 of the tech variety model is that. Multiple ways to engage. So engagement, Mika, is principle number 8, I want to say. I hope it's not number 7. It's number 8. So I'll get back to that. I'll talk about that. That's the hardest thing to measure, by the way, is engagement, learner engagement. Allowing choice. So thank you, Bo. Choice is principle number 5, I think. So yeah, flexibility, choice. You'll see that one come up time and time again. This class is an exemplar of choice. I want to say exemplifies an example, so exemplar of choice and the choices that we have in life. Okay, that's pretty good. You guys are doing better on this question. It took you a while to think of some things, but okay, I'll give you credit for that one, and let's move on then. And hopefully this is not the type of students you see in Japan, Yayoi. These are the Japanese students that I took pictures of when I visited. And you're not getting the audio of it, are you, Sunmei? There actually is audio that goes, but I'll skip the audio on some of this. They did wake up after a while because Yayoi gave a talk to them. And, you know, she wanted to engage her students like Jean-Luc in Star Trek, just engage, engage, engage. But it's hard to engage. What does engage actually mean? You know, we can't, it's difficult to define, it's difficult to measure, it's difficult to discuss. But there are principles around motivation that have been ferreted out for decades by a number of researchers at the University of Colorado, at Denver, at Michigan State, Jerry Brophy, and at many other, Stanford University, many other places that have looked at these principles of challenge and meaningfulness and choice and feedback and personal, all these things. So you guys were all looking ahead at the slides, because I see a lot of those were in your answers, or you're a very smart class, one or the other. I don't know what it is. But these principles are ringing true within the tech variety model. So I tried in designing the tech variety model to utilize the research of many researchers in the motivation camp. I was an educational psychologist. Maybe I still am. I don't have a badge that I wear anymore. It says educational psychologist on it. But Yayoi will agree and nod her head yes. And Curt's an educational psychologist. He doesn't know a whole lot of other things, but this is what I am. So I took that degree in educational psych to heart, and I tried creating a motivation framework for working with or without technology. One of the key principles wrapped around it is intrinsic motivation, volition, curiosity, striving, one's passions, one's interests, seeking out new knowledge based on optimal interest and challenge. And when the TEC-VARIETY book came out, my friends at Beijing Normal said, we'll translate that book because it's free. And they gave it to the Open University of China, who created a actual physical book that they sell of it. But I have it in Chinese and in English. You see the 10 principles of motivation there that spell TEC-VARIETY. And I'm going to be walking through these: tone, engagement, tension, all these things. Different psychologists are known for different principles. So tone is known by the humanists, Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers in his Freedom to Learn book, Arthur Coombs at University of Florida, all humanists. Number 2 is known more by behaviorists, the positive reinforcement. Number 3, Mika, is the gaming theorist, building curiosity and suspense and all that. Number 9, I think it was Bo or it was Patrick, talked about Piagetian kinds of stuff with your kids. I think it was Bo was experimenting on his kids and filming them. Well, he's doing a Piagetian experiment of pretzels, right, in the discussion forum. At least he gave them nutritious food and important food, which we all got in Milwaukee, where I grew up. But of course, when I grew up, there was all the Germans there, so they gave us pretzels and beer. I'm not sure if Bo gave his kid a beer, but okay, he got pretzels. He performed these counting experiments. And if you take my P540 course, you learn more about Piaget and his experiments. Number 10, yielding products, relates back to constructivism, and actually Roger Schenk's work on goal-based scenarios, having a goal that you work towards, right? And we build a product for. Seymour Papert at MIT, constructing knowledge and so forth. As I said, Elaine Coe and I have been working on a new version of this book called How to Motivate and Retain Learners Online. This book will be out any day, literally. And we thought it'd be out 2 months ago, but we heard it was delayed until this week or next week. And so hopefully I can send that all to you, along with a free class that's meant for the former British colonies in the global South, to help ramp up the teachers there and the educators to teach online, but it's going to be open to the world. So in Japan, Yayoi, in Costa Rica, Chris, everywhere in the world will get this free book. Maybe they don't like it, but you can find it through col.org, commonwealthoflearning.org. They have many free reports at col.org. By all means, check it out, because they have reports about how parents dealt with COVID, it's about the global South and how they got education out to the youth that couldn't go to schools. They got blended learning studies, A to Z. They've got reports that are free to the world. So Elaine, also, I've put her on the schedule that we're bringing her in this semester to talk to her. I haven't told her this yet. And so if she doesn't show up, Yayoi will take her place and be my co-host that night. We'll see if Elaine agrees to come in. And In-Sung Jung, your advisor, I'm changing the week that she agreed to come. I haven't told her that either yet. So the week that's on there is the week I want her. I'm going to be at AECT the week I originally got her. Both her daughters are getting married right around the time I'm bringing her in, like the week before. So In-Sung Jung's an alum of IST. She graduated before I arrived with her husband, who's also an alum. They're very famous people from Korea, and In-Sung worked in Japan. And In-Sung is probably one of the most famous e-learning people in all of Asia. She knows everybody. I mean, her name means a lot, as Yayoi knows. Every year she was doing a book till she retired this year, and I'm bringing her out of retirement. She's actually not retired fully. She's still doing research. So if you get my TEC-VARIETY book, I have every strategy, and there are 100 of them times 2, because there's a variation. There are 200 ideas in the book from the degree of time, risk, and cost. Some people want low risk, low cost, low time. Other people, like Yayoi, do higher risk, higher time kinds of things, very instructor-centered kinds of things. So some examples. What I like doing is little musical kind of intros to my class before, as students are walking in or coming to the online session, just having people relax and listen to a song or sing along with the song. It might be an IU related song that we all know. And that way we get this comfort level in the class. We know that Dr. Bonk's class is going to be accepting of a little different kinds of things, and I can feel free to say what I want to say. Now, in the old days means 5 or 10 years ago, Christian, we were talking about course introductions with an online video from the instructor, and that's really good. The guy on the right there teaches one of the top 10 MOOCs in the world. He's my friend, Chuck Severance. He teaches on Python programming. He teaches another course on programming for everybody, ramping up high school teachers to teach programming. And he teaches a course on the history of the internet, which I had the chance to come to the end of the class and give the commencement ceremony of at the University of Michigan. So Chuck has office hours around the world. He has meetups with his students. And he has a chapter in one of my MOOCs books talking about these meetups that he has. But this is the old way of student introduction. And then he has, by the way, students create videos of themselves introducing themselves, which is the new way, okay? Getting not just the instructor, teacher-centered, but be student-centered in their approaches. And you can click on these links if you download my slides, and they're up in Dropbox. But the new way is to have students introducing themselves in Padlet or Jamboard or something else and finding out little nuggets about the students in your class that semester. And you can click on those links. This is last semester's class, as you can see here. You can see me in the middle in Saudi Arabia there, and my students, Bob and Bell and so forth and so on. Just getting a pulse. You want to get a pulse. Take the pulse of your students, a pulse on the climate, a pulse on what they know. You want to get a sense of what they know and don't know. So one thing that Sune and I are good at, well, Sune's good at, I just follow her lead. Sune is really good at posting things in a Jamboard or creating a Padlet for the class. What are the educational uses of mobile learning before I teach on mobile learning? And Yayoi is one of the experts out there. She's very interested in mobile learning. And so she would want to know what the answers are before she gives a lecture about mobile learning. So this is what we couldn't do in the old days with teaching. What we can do much more easily today is utilize these free tools like Jamboard and Padlet and Miro and CMAP and Mindomo and Glyphy and MindMice, all these tools Christian likes. And Padlet, just finding out what they know through a brainstorming, as Christian said. We want to brainstorm what we know and just get ideas down. And from that brainstorm, we can do all sorts of things. And maybe as I'm talking, soon they could create a Jamboard of what's one thing you learned from this session, and we could post that and then have you post that on the Jamboard of things that you learned. And then a second Jamboard, questions that they have for me, Sunme, at the end. We'll go through that. No, breakout rooms in Zoom. Having students get some sense of self-worth and identity as a learner, so they're not just listening to the instructor. And I could throw us into a breakout group here, and we might do at the end of Tom Reeves' session today. I might have us all go into breakout groups and discuss authentic learning and how you see authentic learning, and then come back into the main group to discuss that. It lets people have more comfort by just talking to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 than just all 20 people. They might be nervous talking in front of a large group. Another way to do introductory icebreakers that's free is to utilize one of my colleagues' tools called Flipgrid, which changed its name to Flip, I believe. It's changed from Flipgrid to Flip. And if Yayoi remembers, back in 2013, I'm not sure if you came to eLearn when we did the MOOC one in 2013, but we used Flipboard. And we had, were you there, Yayoi, in 2013? Yeah, I don't think so. So we used Flipgrid. We were one of the first ones to pilot it. So my friend at the University of Minnesota, Charlie Miller, built Flipgrid as an experiment. It was bought out by Microsoft, and now he's a vice president at Microsoft. He's no longer a tenured professor at Minnesota. I wrote him a letter to get him tenure, and now he left there. He's one of my few friends who has a yacht on the middle of a lake in Minnesota, you know, I mean, seriously. But he's a very interesting person. If you get a chance ever to meet Charlie or go to the ISTE conference, ISTE, International Society of Technology and Education, he'll be a speaker at the user group for Flipgrid. And they're building tons of social media. So Flipgrid is a threaded video discussions of 1 to 2 minutes long. So instead of typing your introduction, you're speaking it, or you're speaking on a topic. Number 2 in the tech variety model is feedback. And some of you posted you want feedback, right? That's very important. Well, online quizzes, online polls are tools in which you can get that feedback in a rapid fashion. And Quizlet's the most widely used quiz tool in the world and has pre-canned quizzes. You can steal them, borrow them, change them. So this is a tool to get feedback to students and practice. Students want to know if they know something. Students want to know if it's sinking in, right? And then when they do learn it, they want a certificate or a micro-credential for it. Giving out certificates of completion, like most MOOCs do today, is one way of getting feedback that's extrinsic feedback, not intrinsic. We need both in life. Yayoi and I, when we go to a conference, we want intrinsic stuff. We're curious. We go to sessions, we're curious, but we want extrinsic stuff too. A food that the head of the conference might give us, a free lunch and all that. We like that too. Both intrinsic and extrinsic. And we've gotten many free lunches and free dinners over time. Well, today, those certificates, those activities are going mobile. We're going mobile, right? To mobile micro learning courses. There's a company called Nobi or Genobi that has that. You know, we don't want these clunky, boring, lots of text on a desktop. We want bite-sized, small units, little 10-minute, 5-minute, 15-minute sessions. Another way to get feedback is to have many instructors. Like I have Sunmei, who's like having 5 instructors in this class, and then me. Sunmei gives you feedback, I give you feedback. Well, there's a new course at Stanford that has 10,000 students with 900 teachers. 900 teachers, Yayoi. Imagine if you had 900 teachers in teaching English in Japan there, all helping you. Wouldn't it be great? They'll be in Silver Lining for Learning, my podcast show, in 2 months, in December. The people who designed this program on coding are going to be my guests. This week, past week, we had IU people as my guests. We had the Mosaic project, the active learning project at IU, with the dean of the school there. That was Saturday. On Sunday, I found out the Silver Lining for Learning show is getting an award at AECT for some design, the Design and Achievement Award, something like that. So pretty cool. If you come, it's 1:30 on Tuesday. If you come to AECT, please come to the session and we'll go have a free refreshment afterwards and celebrate. So encouragement and feedback with multiple instructors, with certificates, with practice tests. Also with quizzes online like Kahoot, little fun interactive quizzes. Students love these things. Everyone has a pseudonym and they type in the answers on a mobile device and they want to be number 1 and all this stuff. It gets very competitive, very interesting. I think we did this last fall in class once and it was kind of fun. It was a little bit too many questions, but it was good. A poll everywhere, just getting feedback through polls. Instead of instructors giving feedback to students, you're getting feedback from the students with these polls. You're finding out what they know and they don't know. Tutorials. Tutorials are a way to encourage them to finish the assignments, to start the midterms, because you're giving them a help system, a job aid, some kind of structure that they want in Screener or Govee or Jing or all these technology tools that are built within these systems. You can then have live demonstrations and tutorials, and they can feel safe. They can feel comfort that they're going to get to that and they're going to understand it. I'm cognizant of time. I got about 20 minutes left. I'm on number 3 here. Number 3 is curiosity. And the woman on the left there was the first woman to run the Boston Marathon 50 years ago. And 50 years later, she ran it again. The guy on the right started running marathons when he was in the 80s because all his family had died. His wife died, his kids died, and whatnot. He started running marathons. He was running till age 104. So if you want to inspire people into fitness, you start getting stories, you embed news. Online news is a way to build curiosity, to build volition, and I get students like this is the fastest 100-yard dash woman in the world. And I think in Japan, they have the fastest swimmer in the world, a centenarian swimmer over 100 years old. I mean, everybody in Japan lives to be over 100 years old anyways. They should have the top person, and so forth, because they all retire, but they have a purpose when they retire in Japan. It's not just retirement. They seek they have this purpose, and that's what we need in life, a purpose. So this woman's purpose was to run, be the fastest 100-year-old, and this guy was the fastest 104-year-old, and the woman who runs the Boston Marathon. So fitness, training, running, nutrition. If you have a course on that, there's lots of stuff. You have courses in psychology, sociology. It doesn't matter. There's lots of news. Paleontology, dinosaurs. There's a new dinosaur discovered every week somewhere. The guy on the right there just walked around the world. He was the 11th person to walk around the world, but he's the first one, I think, to walk around with his dog. He found his dog that went around in the first weeks of the walking, and his dog walked around the world with him. So, motivational stuff online, it's all over the place, right? Variety, novelty, fun, and fantasy. Instead of asking students, how can we be more creative in schools? Ask them, how can we be less creative in schools? Instead of asking students, how can we reduce costs in a hospital? Ask them, how can we increase costs in the hospital? Instead of asking, how can we be more efficient in the US? How can we fall apart and rot, which we are. And so sometimes Japan's going to be eating our lunch because we're building so many cars that we can't build here. Actually, I have a new car, Yayoi. I have a Mazda, and it was built in Alabama in USA. So Japan and US have an interesting agreement. It's got me a new car, finally, my first one ever. And it's great. Come visit. So ways to decrease. So just getting ideas in a Jamboard, getting some ideas down and having a game activity and so forth, like a Jeopardy game. So there was a tool, and Sume looked this up, if Jeopardy Rocks still exists as a free tool. I think it does. And your students can create little Jeopardy quizzes for the whole class. And that's what my students did, and they loved it, and so forth. And we created these, just little summaries of our presentation, just summaries of the research, and they had to pick a question, and up comes a question, and an answer is given. And we made a little fun interactive game at a conference. So all the conference participants got to pick a different item and then answer the different item, and they got to win a book if they picked the right item in there. I don't know if you can pick me out from the group in there, but anyways, yeah. And actually, Dr. Reeves will be with us, is the guy in the Dracula outfit. So he'll be joining us in a little bit. My editor at Rutledge is the werewolf. And Dr. Mimi Lee is the witch, and the mummy is Kajang, and I don't know who Frankenstein is. Number 4, randomizing. So instead of having every student sign up to present, have the randomizer do it. And so it's not, or instead of assigning them by alphabet with the first name, Bonk goes first, and then Cassie goes second, and Deandra goes third. No, I have the randomizer, or roll a dice. So go to random.org. They have these countdown 99-second clocks where students can only speak for 99 seconds. This kind of stuff. You want to make your online courses be more interactive and engaging. I've got about 10, 15 minutes left. Number 5 gets us into choice. Somebody said choice. Autonomy. Getting students to pick what they want to do. And Yayoi said, my students watch a MOOC. They watch videos. So I have my students take MOOCs in whatever topic I'm teaching. And if they pass the MOOC with a certificate and write a reflection on it, they can delete the final assignment. If they just take the MOOC and write a reflection without passing, they can delete a midterm. So this is a way to get students to do the work for 2 classes, my class and the extra class as a MOOC. They're learning twice as much content as if I taught it. So they're taking, whatever fitness courses, English courses you see there, TESOL from Arizona State, and I don't know what other colleges are. So those are all your stuff. Yeah, you got English grammar and punctuation and all this. And then you might take this as the #1 course in the world ever. Also the #1 course at Harvard. So #1 course at Harvard is on happiness. This course is at Yale. It's on the psychology of well-being. We want to all have well-being, which basically means happiness, the science of well-being. This is Laurie Santos's course. And my former advisee, Mena Ju, and I have been studying this and other MOOCs to come up with 15 principles to help people be more self-directed in MOOCs. And there are literally tens of thousands of free, massive, open online courses. There are 200 million people in the world taking MOOCs. There are 900 and some universities offering them. Now, not all of them are free anymore. They started as free, but still most are. Some of my students, in terms of choice, tell me, Dr. Bonk, your assignments are too easy. Let me make it harder. Okay, Bo's probably going to do that. Let me make the assignment harder. I'm going to, instead of doing your 100-word glossary, I'm going to make a multimedia glossary and have links to videos and conferences and books. And my students are doing this kind of stuff right now. I know this is a challenge, Bo. I know you're up to it. When you're not designing pretzel experiments, yeah, okay. So you might also give your students a choice to track the life of somebody, of a female scientist or a sociologist, and they can go to biography websites, women in science websites, all sorts of biography.com has information on like Ada Lovelace out there, who helped create the first programming language and worked with the differential engine that Charles Babbage had created, her friend Charles Babbage. The unfortunate thing is Ada Lovelace got cancer early in life and passed away, but she's known as the first programmer in history, in effect. Women were the first programmers in the 1940s and 50s as well, because people didn't think it was important. Once society found programming is important, then the men started jumping and said, we want to do it too, unfortunately. What else do we have here? So this is Silver Lining for Learning. As you can see, I'm dressed. We had, in the left side, we had people coming to us from Africa. I had a shirt on I bought from Kenya. I wasn't in Kenya. I was at a conference in Scotland where I got that. But this is my co-host, Dr. Chris Dede at Harvard, is at the mustache and white hair. Yang Zhao in the upper left from Kansas, and Punya Mishra in the bottom left from ASU. So 4 of us for 2.5 years have had a podcast show called Silver Lining for Learning. We just had IU people on for the first time ever. We had Yayoi's mentor In-Sung Jung on 1.5 to 2 years ago, Okwa Lee and Mei-Feng Liu from Okwa from Korea and Mei-Feng from Beijing Normal in China, reflecting on women leadership. We've had UNESCO, World Bank, Sesame Street on 3 weeks ago, all sorts of things. So we've archived all the shows, and podcasts are becoming extremely utilized recently. And it's really interesting to see this explode just in the past 2 weeks. In 2 months, I'm going to give a talk on how to use podcasts, webcasts, and videocasts to teach from for Contact North in Canada, in Ontario. And so my good friend Abtar Kawar just joined us from Malaysia. Hello, Abtar. I think Yayoi might know her. And so Abtar, we're talking about my podcast show, which just won an award from AACT. Anyways, I won't say it anymore. So we've had people, Abtar, from Antarctica on the show talking about penguin research. We've had UNESCO, World Bank, as I said. People from Myanmar talk about augmented books. UK, Italy, Australia, all Stanford people, where Sunne is. We had Nepal. We had kids in Nepal talk about how they self-directed their learning during the pandemic. So my colleagues, Chris Dede and Punya and Yang Zhao and I have been doing this for, like I said, 2.5 years, and it's kind of interesting, over time. My friend Donald Clark, who gave a keynote at the eLearn conference 6 years ago in Washington, D.C., he's created a podcast show, Tool 2, called Great Minds on Learning. And he has a co-host of the show, too, a guy named John Sweller, I think, who's more of a traditionalist in terms of cognitive theory. The two of them are very interesting in their podcast show. And I started thinking about how can we use these podcast shows in education? And I came up with 12 ways in which you can use these podcasts in your own instruction, such as having online discussion forums around different episodes, such as assigning students to interview one of the podcast's guests for maybe more current information or before the podcast show, or maybe having an online role play or debate on different episodes that we have, or remixing the episodes for common themes that are embedded in those different episodes, or maybe watching many episodes and writing reflection papers or drafting new models of education from it. Now, in the chat window, put A, B, C, D, or F. Put A if you're getting lots of ideas, pop, pop, pop. Put B if you got several ideas so far. Put C if you maybe got some ideas. And if you're like Bo, say D, no hope, but hopefully soon. If you're, you might say, no, my brain is not working and my brain is dead. And then F, there's no hope with this idiot presenting. So pick one of those A, B, C, D, or F, and everybody who picks F gets an F in the course. No, I'm just kidding. I would never do that. So I'm curious what people are going to say. We got a few A's that want an A in the course, of course. Okay, so okay. Instead of doing that, Sunmei, can you put the link? Have you already put the link in for people to post what's the one idea that they got? Sunmei, I can't hear you. Did you create a Jamboard?
Okay.
Did you create a Jamboard, or are you thinking about creating a Jamboard, Sunmei?
Already I.
Okay, so if you could put the link in back for me, so I can click on it. Is it in there? I can't. Oh, thank you. Okay. So now, okay, I'll let you guys fill that in. I'm going to move on. My friend Mark Braun, who taught anatomy at IU for a long time, he's a doctor. He created cases for medical school student, first year and second year students, so that they could see a slide of blood slides, and they find out the patient's heart rate and temperature and blood pressure and all sorts of things. And then they had cases, a man with a cough, a woman with a lump in her breast, whatever, all these cases, abdominal pain. Then they have to make decisions around these cases. These are authentic learning, but they're not the real learning because it's not in the clinic, it's not in the hospital, but this gets the fidelity up a bit. Just having, these cases that might be slides, might be PowerPoints. I think Mark told me it takes him about 7 hours to create every one. And these are all free. I don't know if it was Patrick or it's Bo who works in the medical field. Not you, Bo, that must be Patrick. Oh, it's my other class. Ben works in there in the medical field. Yeah. So, okay, Apter is going to come back. Okay, we got everybody in here. I see some names. Okay, so I'm currently working with Duolingo, trying to see what motivates people to use Duolingo. And we've got 2 papers in review. Having these online language tools like Duolingo or Babbel or Spanish Pod or Chinese Pod or all this stuff is a way to learn lessons without actually being in country. You might be able to converse with someone who's in country and be more authentic. Some of these, though, don't offer that real authentic type of experience, but you hear someone pronouncing words and you try and repeat what they have said to get at some language learning that's ongoing. So there's a plethora of language learning tools today to learn languages around the world. And you wouldn't believe the stories we're hearing about people learning languages. These are not high-end tools. These are not very robust, but they're still using it to get base knowledge, just the basics, basic kind of knowledge and so forth. Relevance and meaningfulness. The gentleman here sitting next to me in the blue, his name is Jim Nagai from Nigeria. He has taken 700 MOOCs and won an award at a conference we were at 3 years ago in Scotland called F9, that's for open education. And, you know, he was using, he told stories of how he lost his technology. He actually got robbed of his computer at gunpoint, and his friends lent them their computers so he could finish all the MOOCs that he had taken. And he won an award at the PCF9 conference for taking all these MOOCs. He's been in the Chronicle of Higher Education. He's now moved to Edmonton, Canada with his wife, his wife took over 100 actually. And the kids in Nepal I mentioned earlier, some of them took over 100 different MOOCs. It's amazing what these people, adults as well as young teenage kids. So the teenagers in Nepal, Yayoi, were taking English MOOCs to get certificates from Harvard and Stanford. And then they took all these other MOOCs on top of that. So another thing that I do in my class, as you know, I bring experts in, I bring guests in. On the right there is Richard Mayer. Richard Mayer was voted the most productive educational psychologist in the world 20 years ago. I brought him into my class last year, and he has his Google Scholar ratings out the roof. And his first job as a faculty was at Indiana University, teaching in psychology department. Now he's at UC not Long Beach. He's at Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara. And Vanessa Denon on the left, I just got out of a session with her. We're doing a special issue, 2 special issues of journals. I brought her in last semester to talk about social media last spring. When I lost my guest at the last minute due to health problems, I called her up, said, how would you like to be my guest tonight? And boom, she was in my class. So, you know, students might read the biography, they might read the article, they might read the books, but bringing them in live does much more. You get to feel them, you get to hear from them, like we're going to hear from Tom. You get to hear them explain their article. And so you can post questions to them in the Jamboard to make it even more relevant to them, right? To make it more interactive for them. And so we might hear the life story of someone who's about to retire, like In Sung Jung. We might hear what her research was like by decade, and have them tell different scenarios or stories about their research and their teaching and why they're in the field, what got them inspired into the field and so forth, and then ask them any question you want. So last week, Tom Reeves came to my other class, and we had an AMA, Ask Me Anything. AMA, it's a very popular thing today, Ask Me Anything. So whatever, we could ask Tom about his dogs, which he loves, his 2 dogs. I forgot what, they're kind of terriers, they're not Westies. He has 2 Westies. One of them is 16 years old, and he's about to die for the last few years. He won a national award for one of these shows, actually. And so we got to ask Tom anything about his research, about his life, about design-based research, which he talked about last week. Tonight, in 10 minutes, he'll talk about authentic learning. So you might post these questions and I did an Ask Me Anything with my class last year. They got to ask me anything about instructional strategies. Yeah, which Ga was in that class. You might remember that. And so these are some of the questions that were up in the Jamboard. So you might also have a future panel. And there's Yayoi in my slide there. You see her there. She's in my future panel. We had several colleagues who went to grad school with me join me in having a future panel talk about the future of education and technology. As you can see, my colleagues from grad school, Veronica, Alqua, Tom, and I brought in so many guests 2 years ago in one of my classes. I created a playlist of the guests, including Richard Mayer. So you can all watch that if you didn't get a chance to hear from Richard Mayer or Punya Mishra or other people that are listed in there. If you'd like, I could send the links to that. It's right there. If you download my slides, you can watch it. So, you know, you can reuse, remix all this free content on the web for other activities. And students might write reflection papers after watching the videos. They might interview participants. They might categorize the episodes. They might create books based on what they said, little mini chapters of a book. and look for themes in them. That's what I have them do. Number 7, I'm running out of time. I only have a few minutes, so maybe I'll quickly go through these or save it for next time. Number 7 gets us at interactivity and collaboration. Trello is a tool for it's a team management tool to organize teamwork and manage group projects. And you can see what groups have accomplished along the way. Things get moved to the right as you accomplish things. So a teacher can monitor what the students are doing or have done. And another way to build interactive and collaborative is to have groups then reflect. Group 1 might put down their key points and the issues. Group 2 might put theirs down and have competitions between the groups and what they are listing for the key issues in Article 4, Article 5, Article 6, and so forth. You can also negotiate meeting in Google Documents. You can have students interact in Google Docs, but easier tools are tools like a mixed ink and meeting words and now comment. It's like little sticky notes that you've got. You can put little sticky notes on the web and just add your comment to it. It's like an online sticky wiki. I'm going to skip. Nuclino is a tool that's a free discussion tool built like a wiki for team debates. We had students at Indiana read articles from a famous Florida State professor named Bob Reeser. His book was great. And so my 511 students read it. And Dr. Mina Ju, my former students at Wayne State, her students read it. We had debates in Nuclino. We didn't have to get her students passwords for Indiana University or email accounts. So this is a way to override that using a tool that's on the web that's free, like Nuclino. Now it's not, the problem with Nuclino, it's like a wiki. If you delete something by mistake, it's gone forever, at least the beta version. So be careful with Nuclino. It really cleans things out. You can also do collaborative annotation using a free tool, I think from Harvard, called Perusal. So students' comments can be put on the side or it's like annotating. And so Dr. Dan Hickey uses this Perusal tool, and you can see the comments that students can color code them and put questions up and all sorts of things. Again, this is a free tool. I've not used it, but it's out there. You can also have students post questions in the chat window for your guests. My students ended up, for this guy, Ray Junko, Ray said, I don't have time to prepare a talk. So my students prepared a talk based on his research, based on his figures and images from his research. He didn't know what they were going to ask. They created a PowerPoint of all his research and he got to comment on it. And then they posted questions, quotes from his research in the chat window. He got to comment on it. He didn't have to prepare anything. My students prepared it all for him. It was a top 10 thing I've ever done, actually. It was a brilliant, it was a great strategy. I have to hold myself off. I don't want to say I was brilliant. It was a great strategy. One of my students did a dissertation on kids in China, in Western and Central China, where they have synchronous training come from expats, China, or from people in Shanghai or Beijing or from the US. They're teaching kids English using synchronous technology in the middle of China, where their parents have gone off to the urban areas and they're left with their grandparents. Might not have teachers that teach English, and they're doing this interactive and collaborative through tools like Zoom, not exactly Zoom, similar to Zoom. Embedding links in a website to have hyperlinking. There's a tool called ThingLink, where you can embed hyperlinks and have students watch a video within so they might call up someone's resume and it might have a video of that person presenting. They might call up a resume and have a paper or something they've written or a poem, or in this case, a lab, a chemistry lab, and then calling up the scientists wrapped around ThingLink. So number 8 is engagement, embedding links. Like NASA lessons for STEM today are all free online at a website called nasa.gov.stem, NextGen STEM. They have dozens and dozens of free lessons to get kids excited and interested in the Webb Space Telescope or the Artemis 1 or other things that are happening and so forth. And Dr. Tom Reeves has just arrived. And so I'll just point out there are a few other ones that I haven't gotten to, including PHET for online simulations and demonstrations in STEM, chemistry and math. I'm going to see if there's any more that are important here. Virtual sharing walls, challenge walls, databases, students doing a Pinterest website, students creating a website, students creating a timeline of their work, infographic, a mind map, all these things. So number 10 is at yielding products. So these were the 10 principles of the tech variety model, from tone to yielding products. I've gone through 8 of them, not quite all of them, but hopefully you've got some more ideas. So in the chat window, again, why don't you put down, or I guess in the Jamboard, some of the ideas that you got from this first session. And in the chat window, if you could put down 3 words from the session, or 4 or 5 words from this session. And my free book is up there, techvariety.com. My slides are posted to trainingshare.com. And I'll give the same sort of talk at 2:30 this morning to people in South Africa. So I'm curious to see what people have posted to the Jamboard. I see a couple of things, tutorials. I see the something about pop culture. Okay, all right. Let me see what's in the chat window. As a comment, we need more time to process. That's good. Refreshing, inspiring. We have in here. Sunna, you want to read a couple?
What is that? What?
You want to read a couple things in the chat window? Mine's really squishy. I can't even see it.
Refreshing, engaging, affirming, exciting, encouraging, inspiring, informative, helpful, interesting. That's it. Very informative and creative.
So this class is on designing learning environments, or learning environments design is the title. I'm going to speak on 4 of my models this semester. I spoke on my Education 2020 model 3 weeks ago. Tonight I spoke on Tech Variety model. In 2 or 3 weeks, I'll talk about my R2D2 model, and then I'll talk about another newer model or idea later in the semester. This is a way of framing the design of learning environments. So look at tonight as kind of the macro as well as the micro. I gave you many tools, resources, and activities that you can use, but those tools come and go. The activities modify and change. It's the structure, the Tech Variety motivational structure that's important for you to think about and take away from and utilize it when you are evaluating instruction for your midterm and your final assignments, right? So Christian's got a question before we move on to Tom. Christian.
I'd have to reiterate my little sticky note in the Jamboard. One of the things that I've learned in the first part of the session is that this exactly what you said, the Tech Variety model is a model, and then tools can be applied to it. And I've seen that since starting my master's in 2018. You have constantly refreshed the tools that you're applying to this model. This model is applicable to so many different tools, and it's really powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good point. So if you took my course last fall, R546 on instructional strategies, I spoke on this model there in the first week. I went and updated all the examples for that over the, every time I present, there's a new idea in there. In fact, the very last one, which I should probably just map up and show it real quick because it's only in here. Let's see if I've got it here. Hang on. That one. So my friend, Hee Jung An, who'll be a guest later in the semester, she's going to talk about robots, and she's going to talk about COVID-19 and how parents dealt with it, and a couple other things. She's teaching teachers how to use robots. She does drone stuff. So she's using comic strips to teach kids about STEM now. She's at William Patterson University in New Jersey, and she's got many grants. They're teacher training grants to teach about light and electromagnetism and radiation, also through comics. I thought that was a fascinating. She sent to me at she sent that to me at 2 a.m. Okay, or 3 a.m. this morning, and I quickly put it into this talk. So I'm constantly modifying the Tech Variety examples And I just didn't have a chance to mention that. And Belle's here, so welcome, Belle, and joining us in here. Any final comment before we move to Dr. Reeves? Question. I'm going to stop the recording and